Yes, there we are. Good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. How you doing today? Special edition, big day in Long Beach, where we're located. We're located in the East Village Arts District, but I think that by the end of the day, you will have seen us touch like almost the entire metropolis of Long Beach, California. It's Long Beach Gives Day. Dream Creator Studio, taking over to do the online giving marathon. We are going to be live on the air from now until 9 o'clock tonight, right? Long Beach Gives. I was contemplating this morning, just the ills of the world, right? As you listen to the news, sometimes it could be really depressing. And at the same time, people like me, I'm just trying to analyze what I'm seeing before. And, when I look at the good of life, though, I look around and I see the arts. And that's what I see, right? I see the good in people, the creative expression. I see the preservation of culture. This is what I see. And so that's what we're all about over there at Dream Creator Studio. We're out here participating, living, having a good time, promoting culture, positivity, good vibes. That's what it says on there. Somewhere around our graphics, you're going to see this message of good vibes. Let me just bring in my partner, super producer, Rhonda Love, so she can really share with you what's going on today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Look at you.
How are you?
Doing all right. All right. Well, there you go. You look at mighty cheerleaderish.
Yes, my role today, I'm taking on a new role, and that is to be a cheerleader. I am cheering everybody on today. Happy Long Beach Gives Day. Let's do it. Woo!
All right. So look, real briefly, and then we're going to bring our guest in. Tell us, what is Long Beach Gives? What's that all about?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Long Beach Gives it's a day of giving in Long Beach. We have a bunch of amazing nonprofits here who do great work just to sustain and build our community. And so Long Beach Gives is a day where we all come together collectively to bring awareness to the work that we're doing here in Long Beach. And it's a day of giving and supporting. And so we just all come together on this day just to celebrate that, a day of giving.
All right. Well, there it is. I know we're a big supporter, Dream Creator Studio. You can continue to help us with our news gathering, with our preservation of culture, with our media education programs. Down there in the little scroller and also up in the chat, you can go to donate.longbeachgives.org and Dream Creator and get that going. But we're not the only fish in the pond. Look, we got partners. We have to roll with a team. That's how you win championships, baby. Teamwork, right? So we're going to bring in one of our closest friends and partner there. She's the executive director of the Arts Council for Long Beach. She's the queen of arts in Long Beach. This is what I'm saying. She runs that thing. Yes, good. Good morning, Griselda Suarez. What's going on? Wait, let me take you. I think we're muted. Wait. Stop fighting me.
There it is.
Well, that means I've been up since 5 a.m., so I don't know how to use a mouse anymore. Good morning, buenos dias. Thank you so much for having me today, for joining and being part of this wonderful day of giving. I don't know if you had a chance to read the mayor's letter that he sent out about Long Beach Gives. It was just so amazing, and it really is a more together, better together way of doing fundraising, right? LBC is strong, and we're a very tight-knit community, and we do it better together.
I saw the presentation that the mayor did as actually a friend of ours, Mr. Demet Guidry, who is a music industry veteran. He's out in Atlanta. He sent it to me in Facebook Messenger. It was like, yo, did you know about this? And it was the message about Long Beach Gives. And I sent them the link and said, yes, we are very much involved. Good stuff. Good, good. So, Griselda, we talk about the arts, right? And the whole essence of art and community and what it means, as we view our position of recovery from these unprecedented pandemic times. We hear recovery, where the cities recovery, and we think that arts is an essential service to community as we recover out of pandemic times. Talk a little bit about how important the arts, from your view, are to the life and essence of our cities and communities.
Well, I can just talk from, I wanted to share my lived experience, right? I grew up in LA. I grew up in downtown LA, East LA, and there was a lot of art there, but there was also art in my home. My dad was a singer. His sister was a singer and a guitarist and a singer-songwriter. My grandfather as well. My mom's side, all the women there are craft makers. They make art with their hands and their weaving. And I was given a sewing machine at a very young age, right? I was also taught by my grandma her skills, and my dad was a performer, and I saw him do that all the time. And so it was in my home, and really, really amazingly, I grew up going to the LA Music Center, right? Or going to concerts at the sports arena, or being exposed to black and white independent film at different cinemas. And that was all because there was exposure activities for me. And I think this combination of loving arts and culture and seeing that arts and culture in our home was a way of telling the story of our ancestors, and then going to seeing all these great things in LA through our school programs and through these exposure activities, I think really shaped who I am. But I think that I survived a lot of things that happen in urban life because of the arts, not only in my home, but in my city. And it taught me that I could express myself. Sometimes it's more difficult than other times, but if this happens in my life, I think it happens in many people's lives. It's a strong way to connect to who you are, but to your community as well, and generate income for your community, for your city. There's a creative economy. We live in a vibrant arts city, and it really showed when artists stepped up, performers stepped up. On March, we had our art walk canceled because of the shutdown, and then I believe on March 25th, we had our first online event because artists were ready to step up and alleviate some of the stress through art and performance. So recovery is going to be important because we stepped up, and we're asking other people to step up with us and help us recover and help us bounce back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, that's an incredible thing there. I just really am just so proud to have been a part of that experience there. It was really, fascinating, and the struggle continues. We're going to continue to move forward. Why don't you, Rhonda, I'd love for you to share from your heart, just what you see, the work that the Arts Council is doing, and certainly the magnificence of Miss Griselda Suarez. I still got you, my bad. Hold on. There you go.
Oh my goodness. Let's just say that one of the greatest treasures we have in our city is the Arts Council for Long Beach and Griselda Suarez. She has done so much. I remember when she first came on board in that position, I was in the mayor's office still. I was so excited. And I'm like, oh my God, just her energy, just a ray of sunshine. And I have just been excited from the day she started with us, and just kind of being the queen, as you said, of the arts in Long Beach. The Arts Council does amazing work. I call them some of the most powerful women in our city. I think it's five or six of them at most, a handful, if that, that has just really taken charge of the creative space, the creative economy in Long Beach, and just building and helping us grow. Me being an artist myself, I talk to other artists, and you know what? Everybody, we're like, oh my God, we got the best arts council, the best fearless leader in Griselda anybody could ever have. And so I'm so thankful for her being here. She gives people hope, not only helping us to build a creative economy and all of that, but just the energy and the vibration. And she's extremely inclusive of everybody. And I could go on and on talking about Griselda and the Arts Council and Lisa and Judy and Laura and just all of them there. But just amazing, amazing, amazing work. And this is a great town to be an artist in.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really great that Griselda is here with us. But she brought some heat. I was like, wait, I'm looking at these bios. I'm like, oh my goodness. Wow, look, okay. So, Griselda, why don't you do the honors and introduce us to your friends here?
I would love to. I also want to, like, similarly, when I joined and I met Rhonda, there was some really great energy there. And I have to say that the same thing happened when I met Ruby Lopez Harper from Americans for the Arts. We clicked, and she got me on a very deep level, and she also helped me. She was just so amazingly welcoming and taught me a lot about how we all work together. She now is Vice President of Equity and Local Arts Engagement for Americans for the Arts. And it's just a pleasure that she's with us, and I'm so glad she said yes.
All right, that'll be Ruby Lopez Harper. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. How is everyone? Oh my word. It's so exciting to be here. And, I also want to sing Griselda's praises. When she says that she's learned a lot, I've learned so much and have gotten just so much inspiration out of watching the way that she moves and the way that she approaches her work, the way that she supports and serves her community. It's just inspiring. And I love, one of the things that resonates with me a lot about Griselda is the invitation, right? That, she had this opportunity. She invited me, I invited Bria. And I think it's just how we do this work, that it's never about us in a singular space, that it's about us creating opportunity to be invited into an experience. And that's one of the unique and I think really meaningful and connective tissue-ness that the arts is. And so I'm so excited to be here. Yeah.
All right. Hey, that's a good, beautiful thing. Look, let's bring in the next guest here. I have so many questions for Dr. Heidelberg here. I really do. So go ahead and Griselda, bring it right on in. Or Ruby, you introduce us to Ray.
Yeah. So Dr. Heidelberg and I have known each other for a really long time. I was just kind of going through it. It's been over a decade. Mm-hmm. And we started out kind of in volunteer capacity. And over the years, we've just discovered that we're very like-minded, but we're also very curious, and we're deeply committed to improving access and equity in the arts to make sure that folks can participate as they are able and desire to, and to make sure that the systems that people are moving in don't continue to exclude. And so it's been just a fascinating development and relationship that's grown from those conversations. And she's just such a dear friend, trusted colleague, and brilliant thought partner. So I'm so excited that she was able to make time to join us today.
Well, good. Well, there she is. Good morning, Dr. Heidelberg. How are you?
I'm doing well. Bria, please.
Bria, okay. Well, Drexel University, associate professor. Program manager. Now say the whole title. The program manager of arts entertainment
Entertainment and arts
manage.
management. There we
Okay.
go.
Okay. Bria, what exactly is that?
So I train undergraduates to run all of the arts and cultural institutions, regardless of business status. So for profit and nonprofit. We have students that are interested in film and television, dance companies, theaters, zoos, libraries, sports management, and the entertainment side of that that's growing. So if you're entertained by it, I'm training students how to run it equitably and hopefully efficiently.
Wow, wow, Rhonda Love. They didn't have that when we were coming up.
Not at all. Not at all. I've got to go back to school.
Man, oh, that's all right. Okay, okay. No, let me ask you, Ruby and Brea, let me just ask you all, okay, when we look at the arts, right, in such a time as this, our country has gone through so much, the pandemic, cries for social justice, political situations and circumstances, from your view, how important is the arts to the character, to the cultural revolution that we're seeing right before our very eyes? What place does the arts play in all of that?
For me, front and center. Front and center. It's the air we breathe. It's the food we eat. It is front and center. I don't see any path forward through understanding, growth, healing, belonging. That there is no other way to do that the arts can do. We can fix our systems, absolutely. And the arts can't do it all itself either. The arts has to be infused and integrated as part of a holistic community transformation. It can't do the work by itself, but I think it is front and center in the work, absolutely.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, it's the people that were filming, and showing you what was happening in our streets on the news. 9 times out of 10, those are theater kids or stage management kids that grew up and decided to do this work. The people that are doing the marquees that help you draw your attention towards certain turns of phrases and certain causes and certain people's deaths over other people's deaths and who's missing and who's important to find. That's marketing, that's artistic, ways of being and communicating. So even if you're not thinking about it from here's this creative mural or poem or spoken word thing that helps galvanize people towards collective action, the other side of it, the invisible side of it, the news and the media, that's arts too.
That's interesting. Now, where do we find the resources? I mean, I hear you. Okay, loud and clear, you guys. All right. Let me ask the question like this. So, should that holistic portion of community be driven by established governments, cities, counties, municipalities, or should we rely on the goodness of the community to support us with resources? What's best? Or is it both?
It's both, right? That it is an infrastructure. So your local government, and that can be city, county. You have, and I have a whole lot of feelings about this, but I'm going to say this anyway. You have the philanthropic community, right? So the folks that are donating money, and you have philanthropic infrastructures like Long Beach Gives, that are another mechanism. And then you also have artist payments, like arts organizations that are producing work will charge a ticket. There's earned revenue. There's a number of ways that art can be supported, and it doesn't always have to be transactional. And I think that's something to consider in it when we're talking about holistic and very integrated. That while there's also this desire for artists to be able to live by being an artist and have a full life and do the things that you should be able to do in that way, And arts organizations need to be able to sustain. So they have, they have earned revenue models and things that they need to follow. I think it's equally important to hold space and value for people that just do art because they do art. And for me, I think it's so important to remember that there's all of that when you talk about the arts. It isn't just the for-profit, it isn't just the nonprofit infrastructure, and it isn't just artists that are selling their work, but it's also folks, Griselda's story is so touching. I have, several as well that like how we connect to just art in our day-to-day existence has to be important and valued as well. And I think that underpinning is what can then drive these other structures to create additional support.
Right, because I asked the question because artists. I mean, there's like Bria was saying, now everybody has a camera, right? It's the technology is there so that you can, really create and everything, but it costs to do what we do, right? And so, how do we find the support as artists, as content creators, as painters, musicians, all of that, so that folks can feed their families or take care of themselves, and how do you access those funds, and how well is that supported? Because I bring up the whole municipality because there's some politicians no and so how do you continue to support the vibrant the term that's been ringing into my head, and Rhonda gave this to me the other week when we went to the Las Vegas Art Walk. It was just so overwhelming, and she was talking about the arts economy,
Yep.
And so, I began to just contemplate how do we sustain the arts economy inside of these cities, And now, Bria, what do you see coming, like as students? How are they do you teach them about resources, and what's the best practice on how to get resources for a young up and coming artist?
So I teach them about resources, but I also teach them about respect. And so I tell them, you can't have a capitalist relationship with your artists or creatives and expect them to have a communist relationship with you. So that's more about respect than it is about resources. So whenever they are organizing an event, we talk about paying your artists whatever it is that you can as you're starting out, and then working your way up towards a living wage. Always paying attention to who's in the room. And not making decisions about somebody without somebody. So all of that is related to making sure that artists have access to advocate and speak for themselves, and also respecting what they have to say about the cost of doing their work. Both the cost financially, psychologically, physically, that being a creative, and especially when we're thinking about the creative processes behind social justice art or activist art, there are additional costs outside of, your rent and food as well. But I'm always teaching my students about paying attention to those things. They are very savvy about it. We teach them about the structures of applying for grants. We also pick apart how sometimes that's problematic.
Rhonda, I want you to jump in here. I know you got some input on this discussion here.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I wanted to ask the question, what's everybody's take on the arts economy or the coming creative economy? What do you think the future holds just for building a sustainable creative economy?
Ooh, that's been work that's been underway even prior to the pandemic. With Americans for the Arts, the organization that I work with, and there's lots of resources on the website, americansforthearts.org. And, we've done a lot of work, I think, especially right now through supporting creative workers that have been deeply affected by the pandemic. And then also trying to think about, what are the things that we've always known are missing, but we can capitalize on the momentum that's happening, the attention, the density of what's going on right now that allows coalitions to come together, to lobby for things like the pandemic unemployment assistance. And, long term, we need to continue to think about how do we not separate artists and creative workers from the conversation of labor force in general, but how do we advocate for the things that are uniquely related to being a creative worker that isn't always considered or covered or delineated within these, very traditional structures? And I think, we've already started to see movement there, and I'm hopeful that that will continue. And then also, to Bria's point, how do we foster a valuing and monetizing of the work that creative workers contribute, not just in themselves, right? We have to empower them to advocate for compensation that is fair and that acknowledges the work and the effort and the expertise, but also at the same time, pushing organizations to do better. And, I often think about the fact that, like, if you can't pay a living wage, should you really be operating? And that's a pretty deep question that I think organizations need to ask themselves going forward. If we're not able to pay a living wage, is this really the thing that we should be doing? And is this the way that we should be doing it?
I love it. I love it. I do have another question. If anyone else wanted to chime in on that one before we ask the next question. Creative
I'd
economy.
like to hear Griselda's thoughts there.
I see the
Yeah,
wheels turning
there. I don't know how I can follow up, Ruby. I think I think we need to strengthen here in Long Beach in particular. I think we need to strengthen how the city approaches arts and culture. There are some really great programs that have come out of innovation, right? Long Beach was a Bloomberg innovation city, and still is. And there are some things that when I first came on board that I would refer to. I'm like, remember when you said we're going to be a bicycle city and everyone's going to be riding a bike, and you're going to make it really easy, and we changed the streets, we added like bike lights and bike lanes and turn signals for bicycles. That took like some intellectual thought. It took engineers to change the streets. It took public works department, economic development department, marketing, signage, like all communication tools, community events, all of this so that we could add some lanes in the street, right? If we were to apply that same tactic to how we look at arts and culture in Long Beach, and this can be applied to all cities, imagine the difference and the engagements and the vibrancy and the connectedness and the strength of our residents to be able to say, come to Long Beach and visit us, but also for our residents to take ownership of who they are and their identity. And we're an international city, right? That's one our motto. And you look at the stats, we also have communities that exist here and in like Cambodia town. We have the largest population outside of Cambodia. We have great culture on Anaheim Street. There's so many things that if we looked at arts and culture with the lens that we apply to other segments of our municipality, we would be out of this world.
All right, just oh wait, Rob, sorry. There you go.
Bria, what's your take on the creative economy or the future of it?
I think we're still fighting what I hope are the last dregs of the glorification of the starving artist, and by extension, the glorification of the starving arts administrator. And I think that's the biggest challenge because people will see, the outcomes of creative output and say, oh, that's nice, or that was really wonderful, or what was everybody doing during the pandemic? They were watching and engaging with creative products. But imagine how much greater that would be if those creatives weren't dying as they crossed the finish line of the creation process, having to fight red tape and like figuring out where their next meal is coming from. So it's those conditions of scarcity, which we love so much in this country, are not a requirement for the creation of meaningful and awesome art. And I think once we get past that psychological barrier for a lot of people, we will be able to, fully realize the like the holistic awesomeness of a good creative.
Oh my goodness! I gotta cheer you guys for that one. No? That was great! Yay! Okay.
And then I got my game now. I want the rah rah.
Look, I felt today was going to be really great. So at the last minute, I ran out to Party City and grabbed me some pom-poms about an hour before they closed. They had them waiting for me. So glad I got them. I'll send you some, Ruby.
All right.
And I do have one more question. Thank you so much for just all the comments and everything. And Bria, I really feel that about the starving artists. You being a person, I'm a creative first, and running this organization, Dream Creator, we are all constantly interacting with artists and keeping them from the starving artist experience as much as we can, and while we do the same for ourselves. So we're constantly looking at ways of expanding opportunities for artists, whether it's presenting them in a gallery, connecting them with folks who would love to support them, and even just diving into what's the latest and greatest and what's happening now. And with that, technology is what comes to mind. And as what's happening now, lots of changes in that space that can create great opportunities for artists to even further building independence or an economy or a career for themselves in that, without having to be a starving artist. And so one of the things that we've been really taking a deep dive into is the crypto space, what's happening in the crypto world, and in particular, what's happening with NFTs. And I attended a conference just on the whole crypto space, Bitcoin and Ethereum in particular, which is kind of the contract crypto in the crypto space, in the blockchain. And they were talking about, one of the things that they were talking about with regards to NFTs. NFTs is a way where an artist can create their work, put it in the crypto blockchain space, and folks can, and it creates ownership through, people can own the work through purchasing it. And each time that piece of art is sold in the blockchain or crypto space, that artist can get a residual income, so it's recurring. So it's not a one-time sale. If you make a Picasso and you sell it to someone for $100,000, if they decide to sell it, 10 years from now for $200,000, it's in the blockchain. And so each time there is a sale or a movement of that artist's work, that's a revenue and income that comes to that artist. And so I think it's really amazing. And so I don't know if you guys know, I'm sure someone here knows about it, but I would be interested to see what your take on create artists, artistry, arts, and the tech space, what you're seeing in the technology space in terms of it coming together, just kind of help expand an economy for artists.
I think when it comes to technology, no, I say that because, I think when it comes to technology as a blanket, there's still a lot of inequality in access to technology. And I think NFTs, for me, to a certain extent, also amplifies the inequity in access to understanding of and then utilization of that space. I think it's also challenging when you think about the environmental impact of blockchain and mining. And then you also add the layer of kind of capitalistic principles against the NFT system, and it's not perfect yet, right? There's still a lot of problems and a lot of challenges, but I think for me, it was really exciting to learn about it. I also went to a summit and listened to it on a 6-hour drive. I was just in the car, and it was fascinating simply because that's just not normal. Right? It's not in our vocabulary the way that it could be. I was just talking with another university this morning, and they were asking about what should we be watching for trends? And, I didn't mention NFTs. And I think it's because it's still feels so inaccessible. And yet it's such an opportunity space. Because I think if we can arm artists with a deeper understanding of how it works, why it works, and what it's intending to do, if we arm local arts agencies, for example, with an infrastructure of knowledge as well. How is that going to change the landscape in a year, 2 years, 5 years? Because it's not new technology either. It's been in percolation for almost 10 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, Greg, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. And, you know, to your point, that is so true. The whole thing about it really costs a great deal for the current mining system. And then there's, you know, there are other cryptos that are happening in the block space, such as XRP, that are looking to partner with Elon Musk and folks like that to hang satellites, low earth hanging satellites, so that they can address the whole mining costs and make it more energy efficient. One of the things that I heard, I'm watching it because one of the things that I heard in a panel as well of artists, and they were just talking about how this generation, your Gen Zs, your Gen X, and the coming generations, they're different in terms of how they curate and collect art as opposed to the us of the past, and that they don't want the Picasso on the wall where they've got to figure out how to keep it protected and have a security and how do I move that piece of art. They want their Picassos in the digital space. They want it on their phone. They want to be able to post it on their social media and say, look, I'm one of the few people, that has this piece of art. I'm the only one that has that piece of art and everything. And so that's kind of where we're moving into. And definitely to your point, it's going to be a great opportunity for artists to just kind of create even more opportunities for economics and everything. But do you see big, huge changes in the way people enjoy art in the coming years?
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing it now, right? I think it's one of the reasons why I still, encourage folks to support their local arts organizations, to support and buy art from their local artists, because even though things are magnificently changing, it doesn't mean that there's resources behind that. And it doesn't mean that people have access to the things that they need in order to continue to produce. And so, it's still, I think, really important to make sure that we are providing the resources. So, when I think about, is it going to change? It's already changing. I think digital is not a Band-Aid anymore. It's going to be the way of life, in addition to some of the more traditional ways that we're used to consuming art and we're used to experiencing art. And I think it's so important right now in this kind of transition phase again, right? We continue to morph and really need to be agile in this moment as organizations, as creatives. And it's another transition for us to make, to understand not just digital as triage or digital as response, or, even digital, like I said, as a Band-Aid, but what happens if we look at digital as just a new way of doing it? Or what I've really loved is hearing stories about local organizations that are doing experiences in a different way. In Columbus, where I spent a number of years, they did sidewalk concerts. And so you kind of got a driving map and you went around and there were musicians on the sidewalk performing. And, it's brought out the creativity, because I think even if digital really solidifies, right? And that takes a lot of things, broadband access is going to have to get better for everyone across the country, not just communities with resources. And technology and equipment has to get more readily distributed to organizations. Again, another reason why it's so important to be supporting organizations and artists so that they can get access to the equipment that they need in order to produce higher quality digital experiences, if that's a thing that they're pursuing. And so, it just creates this ripple effect. Then there's, understanding how to best produce on that. It's going to give way to different experiences and the way that, those are assembled and constructed. I know I've been watching a group, and they've been working on, and I'll probably hop on my phone and get the name of the group because I want to give them credit. But they've been working for the last year on a theater production that's examining social issues, and they've been using the digital space and been really open about their process, and it's just been fascinating, and it's now coming to the stage, if you will. And so there's a lot to be done, and I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, so true. I'm really excited. I could talk to you forever, and I definitely want to hear from everyone else. But just what's happening between art and technology and NFTs and crypto and live stream is just absolutely amazing.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, this is fascinating, a fascinating segment of our discussion. I'd like to ask Brea, how does this discussion or this vision of in the digital space play out in the labs and the classrooms at the university?
Students are really savvy, and so sometimes they're often, hey, did you hear about this? And then I have to go and scramble and look it up, which is fine. The thing that we talk about a lot is the fact that sorry to sound like Terminator-esque, but inequality is sentient at this point. And I don't mean that to distance the harm from the people that are perpetrating harm in those instances, but like it will find ways to sneak into any new system. So I just caution people against thinking that just because something is new, that it doesn't have it's an intellectual evolution, right? Like these things don't come fully formed out of nowhere. And so they're usually bringing with them the built-in inequalities that have existed before. And so there are things like Ruby was listing, to be mindful of. And it might seem like there's increased access, but it might just be different people that have access, and there's still people that aren't able to fully participate in the ways that they would like. So that's the thing that we talk about when we talk about a new system. How new is it? What are the bones that it's built on? And what things do we need to be mindful of to make sure that it's a system that works for all creatives?
Right, because the issue is accessibility, and like the backbone of it, Ruby, you talked about broadband and all of that, and now that we are evolving to the whole 5G system, I think that it is important to make sure that underserved communities have access to the internet, just because that's where all of this stuff lives, and I was asking you, Brea, because also to the stuff that Rhonda was talking about, the action for all of that is among the young people, the students and everything like that. And so while there are bad actors, I think too, there's great, and you're at the helm of this, there's great, intellects in there that can seize the day and tell our positive story, because good will always overcome evil. So I just feel like you are, a steward of bringing young people to the table in this whole digital space. So Ruby, is the Americans for the Arts, do you have a platform for making sure broadband access is, because you know a lot about it, right? And this is the next frontier of arts. Is that one of your points of advocacy?
So it is a consideration that we have within our government affairs area that really leads our advocacy efforts. Every year we look at what are the center and adjacent issues that we should be examining and then bringing into conversation with folks like Griselda and other local arts agencies across the country. But we also mobilize, local advocates. And so we have a number of folks that we work with across the country as leaders for their community voices. We also look at what's important, that Congress is doing or elected officials are thinking about. We have a number of relationships that we maintain with other national service organizations. And so while it is difficult to kind of be the thing that is advocating for all the things, it is a thing that we have been aware of and have been, looking at what is our role in advocating for broadband access. And I think it's really come more center now because of the situation that we're in. It's certainly also been an element of discussion around arts education. And how folks can access information, even with the pandemic. I think that has exacerbated, amplified, and aggravated a situation that we as a society were well aware of, well ahead of all of this happening.
Yeah, access to the internet with laptops in underserved community, it was crazy, right? It still is.
It still is, right? Yeah. You have folks sitting, even at in our community, and I would consider us pretty well resourced, there were still kids that were sitting outside of the school to access the internet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really something. And you know what? This is always, you're right. It's always been a problem when I was working at the radio station and setting up live broadcasts. You would have to access, high fibers, in the ground to make sure that the broadcast happened. And when we would do broadcasts in, I would just say in the deep hood, it was really difficult to lay in, than other areas of the city, right? And that's because the backbone was not built. When they built everything else, they did not serve those communities. And that's what we have to overcome now.
Correct. And so I think it's really important, to have folks like Griselda at the table in order to be able to underpin these broader community issues and concerns with, it isn't just that, it also, permeates all of these other things, and to be able to share her perspective in those conversations, I think it is so important. So, I mean, she's just such a champion, and I'm really glad that she's doing the work that she's doing.
Yeah, me too. I'd have to say, just to share on that, speaking of that in the technology space, Griselda is definitely in the forefront in terms of leading us, in terms of bringing together arts and technology. And she, a perfect example of that is when COVID hit and, we had to change how we do things, and where the Arts Council State of the Art would have been brick and mortar, at a great venue here in the city, and we could have come together in a room and do what we do every year traditionally. We had to pivot. Our city had to pivot, and Griselda led us through that. And we're so honored because she gave us the opportunity to share in that by producing the first ever virtual State of the Arts for the city of Long Beach. And it was incredible. And she just had the foresight. She trusted us as artists and as creative people, and gave us a seat at the table. And, I could cry when I think about it, but she's absolutely at the forefront of just bringing together arts and technology and taking us along with her. So I echo your words, we're so fortunate to have her, but it was just a great experience to be able to bring technology together in the virtual space to present this amazing, state of the arts that, the city, everyone loves. And the city really looks forward to having every year. So thank you, Griselda, for that. It was really great. I mean, she's a visionary, and as a creative, she allowed us to bring our ideas and thoughts to the table. She trusted our judgment and our love for the city, and it was just a great experience to bring art and technology and virtual space together and present this to our city. So it was a great experience.
It was really wonderful, and I didn't do much. It was all you all and your camera people and your sound people and the musicians and the performers and the artists that did a lot. But if I may ask a question, I really would love to hear from Bria. I know that we're getting to know each other here. I'm so glad that Ruby invited you. And I know you do a lot of work with strategic planning and boards, and really concentrated in the arts sector, right? And I would love to hear from you as far as, boards and staff and organizations working together. What are like the tactics right now? Where do arts nonprofits spend their energy right now as a board and a staff to move forward? What are your thoughts? What are your suggestions?
So, moving forward in what capacity? All of them?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to, I do a lot of equity-based and human resources-based consulting with organizations. So I'll speak specifically to that. Lots of organizations are in the process of take stock of who and what they are. Many of them are doing that as a direct result of the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. Some organizations are doing it as a result of the continuation of work that they were doing prior to that. But many organizations are just like, wait, who are we? What is our connection to the community? And what do we do moving forward? And the tactics are largely, first to assess, which I think is really important. Lots of organizations want to jump right into the doing, but if you don't situate yourself in the community, if you don't take ownership of your previous relationship with the community, then you fall into the trap of what I like to call strategic amnesia, where you're just like, history starts today. And we're just going to pretend that everything that happened before actually occurs. So, the best tactics are just say, who are we as an organization and where do we need to deepen our relationships? Some of the things that I encourage organizations to do is to go to a local government meeting, go to a school board meeting, understand what the issues are in the communities where their organizations are housed, and offering them themselves and what they already do, because lots of organizations already do amazing things. It's just about connecting those things to the wants and needs and issues of the communities that they're hoping to serve. And the only way you can do that is by knowing what those things are. So taking stock of who and what you are, taking stock of who you'd like to serve and the ways that you might have caused harm in the past, and providing restorative action and restorative justice in those spaces. And also future planning in ways that are actually meaningful. That often requires what I like to call as restorative payments as well. Boards that need to be boards, and people that are working in development, and funders that need to be more comfortable with the cost of living and paying, workers an actual living wage. And all of the positive impact that comes from people that have their base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, and the amazing things that they can do. Because arts and cultural people, they make amazing stuff happen with shoestring budgets. It's just that we've gotten so good at that that's what people expect of us, without thinking about all the amazing things that we can do with a real budget.
That's incredible stuff, AD. I just want to say amen. Yes. Now, now that I have all of you arts executives here, all of you arts experts, I'm in high cotton right here. Let's have a little, I just want to be kind of analytical, if you will. So we say fine arts, all right? And I just want to ask the panel here, what are fine arts to you? And I love to have this discussion all the time and I always use the analogy of music. When we will say that Mozart is a fine arts composer, but then we won't put Stevie Wonder in that same category. So tell me what fine arts are to you. Go ahead, Ruby.
I don't want to. I don't want to. No. So I'm not going to answer your question, and here's why. So I don't. I think it is all art. And I used to have a great debate with a former colleague of mine. She is now working in Indiana, and I adore her. So I'm going to give her a shout out here if she's watching. But she and I used to sit in my office and have great debates about what public art is, because I'm a huge proponent that public art is ... And she was like, no, public art is these things. And I'm like, but it's not, but it is, and it's not. And I think that's okay. I think when we start categorizing that way, it leaves people out, as you even just stated with your comparison. I think art is what it is, and it is not mine to define. It is not mine to bound. It is not mine to put in a box and put it on my shelf. It's mine to enjoy. It's mine to utilize. It's mine to participate and immerse myself in. And I would not, in my own artistic practices, I don't want to be labeled. I think the labels, advance different infrastructures that are already inequitable. And so I don't prefer them. So there.
All right. I love it. All right. Bria, let me hear from you.
I come from like a classics and rhetoric background. So like I understand what most people mean what they're categorizing in whenever they say fine arts. It's a term that has been largely weaponized. And so you have people that whenever you say that term, they're like, yes, and we need to give that to the unwashed masses because that will make them better. You also have people that when you say that term, it's like, oh, okay, so I know you're telling me that it's not for me because I know that the arts and creative practices that I engage in are not categorized into that. So, arts that I enjoy are varied and range a lot. I mean, um, I like graphic novels. I like television, movies, and I grew up in dance, so I really enjoy classical music because that's what I heard a lot.
Sure.
But I also really enjoy something that slaps in my car on my Spotify playlist, and that's fine. I can live with all of those different things. But yeah, fine arts in general has just been a term, that people have had to work around and through and against in many different instances, just because of who and what it was created for, and the ways that it's been used to provide funding to some and not others. And now that we're seeing that sort of being pushed back against, you're seeing a lot of feelings from longstanding institutions that made their entire existence off of these quote unquote fine arts, that are now real big mad that other types of art might be getting some of the share of the pie as well.
Very good. Griselda?
Oh, well, Greg, as someone who does hold a master's in fine arts, I purposely got one so that I could not do it. I'm not going to do the fine arts you want me to. That's the kind of I am. I agree with Ruby and Brea. Like this is a conversation that I think in some cases and in some situations is used to perpetuate that we have to get to some other level in order to be accepted when what is being produced and exposed and shared in different arts communities is worthy of it already. I know there's a lot of discussion on like should the next generation of artists get fine arts and is it worth it? And when I was in school, I needed that to teach at a university. And so I believe that. And what I got out of a Master's of Fine Arts was not this fine arts license. What I actually got out of it was a community that we continue to do this kind of work. A lot of us do this kind of work in order to break down like a stereotype, a stigma, this concept of raising and another level of art form. So there's many ways to go about this conversation, but in the end, for me, a fine art is something that really you enjoy and touches you and touches your heart, and you want to share with others.
Well, there you have it. I mean, that's a beautiful way to end this part of our 12-hour online giving marathon. I'd like to just thank all of you for coming through and sharing your hearts with us. Look, I feel more artistic already.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Good. Any last words you'd like to say to anybody here before we go? And you all, we are going to go on to our next discussion, which is about the music retail industry. We're just going to change channels a little bit, and so stay on or wherever you're consuming this broadcast. Stay there. But any last words, anybody?
Give today. Brea?
Oh, I was just going to say what Ruby said. Make sure you're giving.
Say it again.
Yep, I said it.
All right, Griselda.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Greg, for continuing to do this kind of work and bringing people together on your broadcast. And thank you for the scroll that you made to give.
That's right. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next broadcast. All right. Peace and blessings, everybody.